Hello fellow CarNut, welcome to the Mazda BT-50. Everybody else has got a ute, so I thought, why shouldn't I have one too? There's no carryover parts from the previous Mazda BT-50 because the previous BT-50 came about with a kind of co-production with Ford, but this one is based on an Isuzu D-Max. In fact, under the skin, the D-Max and the BT-50 are very similar. So we're going to hook up with Cameron later on, who's got a D-Max on test, and see if we can spot the similarities and the differences between the D-Max and the BT-50. But anyway, we're in the limited version, which is top spec in New Zealand. It's a four-wheel drive, diesel, double cab, automatic, 4x4. Now those aspects of it are important because 60% of all utes sold in New Zealand these days, New Zealand, are that. They're all double cabs, they're all diesels, they're all automatics, they're all 4x4s. So yeah, if you're looking for a two-wheel drive, petrol engine, single cab, manual, you might as well go looking for a needle in a haystack. You'll probably find the needle first actually, because double cabs, diesels, autos, four-wheel drives, that's where the market's at. Now I've got to admit, I come to a ute test with a bit of a prejudice. I don't really understand utes. I mean, I'm heading to the Coromandel for the weekend and I've had to bring all my stuff and put it in the cockpit here because I've got a chili bin, got some food, got my camera gear, a few other bits and pieces, clothes and things, and I can't just let them roll around in the massive tray area because it's got no cover on it and they would just slide themselves stupid on the windy Coromandel roads. So I had to bring it all inside and put it in the back seat. You can probably see a little bit here, you know, chips and everything ready to go. So from a practicality point of view, I just don't get utes because although they are massive in their overall footprint, they have bugger all in the way of carrying ability unless you deck them out with all sorts of add-ons in the tray, you know, like a hard top or a tonneau cover and various, you know, little boxes and lockdown cabinets in there. But anyway, I'll try and work past my ute prejudice and take the BT-50 on face value. Now face value is probably a good thing to start with because as you'll see, the BT-50 now has a very familiar face. It's the face that you get on pretty much all Mazdas except maybe the MX-5. It's got that same shape of grille, the same shape of headlights, and from the front on it looks very much like, well, it could be a CX-9. And I've got a feeling that might be a bit of a black mark against the BT-50 because my thoughts are that if you're wanting a ute, you're kind of wanting that tough projection, that image of being, you know, a workman and knowing which end of a hammer is which. And I'm not sure that this very car-like or SUV-like nose on the new BT-50 is going to sit all that well with the market. I wouldn't want my BT-50 to be confused with Grandma's CX-5. Now the BT range starts with a two-wheel drive variant at 47,490 and it tops out at this level for the 4x4 Limited with leather and, you know, 18-inch wheels and all the niceties that come with top spec at 69,990. It's not as broad a range of vehicle offering as Hilux and Ranger have. There's no single cab, there's no cab plus options, there's no petrol engine options. So all BT-50s are double cabs, they're all diesel 3 litre and they all have the same 6-speed transmission. Really your only choice is what trim level you go with and whether you go with 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive. Now the engine on board the BT-50 is a 3 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel. It's the only engine there is in the BT-50 range now. Puts out 140 kilowatts and 450 newton meters of peak torque. Now those numbers are about 17 kilowatts and 50 newton meters short of what maybe a Ranger puts out, and also a lot down on what the Toyota Hilux puts out too. But Mazda reckon that the performance of this vehicle very much matches those two more powerful output engines of those vehicles. They've shortened the gearing on this vehicle to give it a good launch, and they reckon that it's pretty much line ball performance-wise with those. Now, you're not really going to buy a ute for the ultimate in stoplight shootouts, so I don't know if the 17 kilowatts of power deficit is a big deal, but I'm pretty sure that the 50 Newton meter deficit of torque might be a bit of a concern to some, particularly if you're pulling loads with it. Now, as pretty much with all 1-ton utes in the New Zealand market, this thing is rated to tow 3,500 kgs braked, and the payload rating on the back I think is 1,065 kilograms. So yeah, it's a 1-ton ute. They all have pretty much the same towing capacity and pretty much the same load capacity. The engine is pretty quiet. You definitely know it's a diesel. You can hear that diesel kind of timbre to it, but it's not a vocal engine. But then again, it doesn't feel particularly lively either. I'm having to use a fair bit of pedal pressure on the throttle just to get it to keep up with traffic as we go up hills and things. The 6-speed auto is okay. It chops down from 6th to 5th fairly easily if you're wanting to pull out to overtake something from about sort of 80 kilometers an hour. It's not a really eager power plant, I'd say. I think that lack of torque means that they've had to let it drop down gears to try and find some power, rather than let it anchor itself to, say, 6th gear and just use an extra 50 Newton meters of torque like the Ford Ranger that I'm currently following must have on board. I'm sure he's able to hold higher gears than I am because he's got torque to play with. So when we were on the launch for this vehicle, Mazda made a point of saying that essentially it can be all things to all people. They say in fact that if it was a person, it would have multiple personalities. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but anyway, isn't multiple personalities a disorder? It's certainly well appointed in this limited edition version we've got here. Got 2-position heated seats, climate air of course, a nice leather steering wheel. It's got a 9-inch infotainment system here, which is a bit clunky. It's a bit slow to react, and I don't feel all that great about it. It's not as good as the touchscreen and Mazda Connect functionality on their passenger range of vehicles, you know, SUVs and cars, but it's kind of workmanlike, I guess. But yeah, you could certainly use this as a ute during the week, of course, and chuck the family in for the weekend. Rear seat legroom, which I did test before I loaded the back up with all my gear for the weekend, seems pretty good. So yeah, it can function as a family vehicle, but because it's a ute, you know, you've got that high seating position. Yes, great for visibility, but you do get a bit of roll in the corners, and it also is pretty firmly sprung without any load in the tray. I'm running the thing naked essentially. There's no usage of that 1,065 kg payload going on here. I'm just carrying a pack of chips, some clothes, and some camera gear. Oh, and a chili bin with some refreshments in. You get a good view out. The A-pillar is quite thick here, so a little bit of restricted visibility on the front 3/4, but you've got massive mirrors here, and it does have all things like lane departure warning, lane keep assist, blind spot alerts, adaptive cruise control with stop-go function, autonomous emergency braking, has trailer sway control, hill descent control, hill start assist, rollover protection, everything that you need these days to get a 5-star NCAP rating. And I want to talk a little bit about that. This is a 5-star ute, and lots of people say their vehicles are 5-star, but the thing they don't tell you often is when the vehicles were tested. Now this is carrying a 2020 5-star NCAP rating, and that's quite a bit more difficult to achieve than a 5-star rating, say, from 2018 or 2016. For instance, in this vehicle, there's a knee airbag. The other thing that the BT-50 has, which I think is really, really important, it's got what they call a driver far side airbag. So in this side of the seat, there's another airbag, as well as the side protection airbag on this side of the seat. So there's a side protection airbag here that comes out in a side impact to stop the driver and passenger meeting in the middle, you know, with their heads crashing and things. Now that's a really, really cool device, because I can imagine there's a huge amount of injury that gets passed on to both passenger and drivers when they contact each other. So to have an airbag come up between the two, fantastic, love that. So what do we think of it going around corners? Because that's what we're encountering a lot of on this Coromandel Road. It's actually pretty good. It seems to corner pretty flatly. I mean, yeah, you're a long way up off the ground, so you expect a little bit of roll, but I'm not feeling, you know, like I'm being tossed around a whole bunch. It seems to hold a line pretty well. You've got tall sidewalls on your tyres, so it's not that incisive and scalpel-like in terms of response to steering inputs, but you're not feeling completely disconnected from the road either. I can kind of trust it to hold a line nicely through a corner, and given its overall brief, which is a truck, it's doing pretty well. Apart from a bit of a jiggly ride, and thank you, that's got autonomous emergency braking and forward collision alert, as you've just heard. Apart from a bit of a choppy ride and some gruffness from the engine when it's under high rev load, the BT-50 is pretty quiet. I would have thought these massive door mirrors might make a bit more noise, but they don't actually. They're really quite quiet, and it's a nice, calm cabin environment in here. These seats are pretty comfortable, although I have found there's not enough elevator control on the squab to give me good under thigh support. Not a lot of lateral support in the seats either, which you do miss when you've got leather upholstery like this, because although you're not going to be chucking it around like a sports car, it's still just, you know, it just lets you move, which you don't really want, particularly on the windy roads of the Coromandel. It's well built. It's nicely furnished, soft touch vinyls on top of the dashboard here, nice soft door card finishes too, none of that scratchy plastic until you get down below sort of knee height, where I guess the more serviceable surfaces start to play. But generally, yeah, it's pretty nice. Now, although the BT-50's power and torque outputs are a little bit down on its direct competitors, it does give Mazda the chance to deliver good fuel economy. I think they say something like 8 litres per 100k is their combined cycle fuel economy figure for the BT-50. Now, I've come down from Auckland largely at motorway speeds, a little bit of idling around when I clown around with cameras and things, but I've done, 130 odd kilometres now, and I've averaged 7.4 litres per 100k, so quite good. Of course, that figure will go up a lot in town and in city environments and things, but it's probably quite the economical choice in this sector of the market. Well, I've had a good 3 days with the BT-50 and got to know it pretty well actually. I've done, it'll be 700 Ks plus by the time I get back. It's been a pretty good partner over those 700 Ks. I do think that the 50 Newton meter torque that it's missing against some of its competitors is actually a bit of a sticking point. In low speed driving, when you're doing sort of 25 to 45 kilometers an hour up these really tight, twisty little roads, I'm up and down that gearbox the whole time trying to find where the engine produces satisfying torque. And I've got to say, it's really hard to find. It feels like it's only got about 175 revs of the torque window where it's actually on song. The rest of the time it just feels a little bit underpowered, to be fair. really appreciate the fact that it's so quiet inside here. Backseat passengers say it's great for room and comfort, so that's a good thing. There's a couple of little annoying noises that it makes on the overrun. I don't know you'll be able to hear it, but on the overrun there's a kind of a like a, I think it's a turbocharger on the overrun that sounds just a little unfinished, I guess you'd say. If you try and select a gear that it doesn't want you to, like it's outside of the rev limit allowed for that gear, it'll give you a really distasteful sort of buzzing noise like this. Hear that? It's just a little bit, I don't know, it just feels a little bit out of keeping with the rest of the car-like interior here. It feels a little bit rudimentary, I guess you'd say. I've also noticed that the BT-50 must have the single biggest number of little icons and pictograms that light up on your dashboard when you start it up. It just lights up like a Christmas tree. It's quite amusing, but I don't know what all of them mean because they're only up for a second and a half or so. But man, it looks like there's a lot of technology going on here. One of the things that I know the technology is doing is lane centering, where it's got a lane keeping assist arrangement, which again, I don't think I've managed to find a way of turning off. It may well be able to be turned off, but it is quite pronounced in its corrective action. Now, I've mentioned before that this BT-50 is based on the Isuzu D-Max. They share a lot of the platform. Now, Cam happens to have a D-Max on test at the moment, so I'm just going to jump in and say hello to him because I want to see how the BT-50 stacks up against the D-Max. There he is, standing like a real poser in the middle of a grassy field. Oh, there's a townie in the paddock.
You're going to bring the top spec one?
This is the top spec one, rude boy.
Really?
Yes.
This looks like, this is what top spec looks like. There's lots of stickers. You know,
right.
That's what shows you bought the top spec one. Lots and lots of stickers.
And you want to show people you've got the top spec one, don't you? I mean, that's the sort of the needy aspect that you you have when you have a ute. You want to show people that you've forked out money on accessories and image and kind of the Studley hard-on sort of.
It's rude to discuss money in polite society, but you want people to think, oh, we spent a bit of money. I don't know if that's the limited.
That's the limited. This is the top spec, so this is 60,990.
Well, this is basically $75,000. This is actually a full $15,000 more than that.
But I got to say, prima facie,
yeah,
it does look it. It does look the money.
It does.
And I think that might be important in this market. What do you reckon?
I believe so. I think if you've got something that you can go into the showroom and drive out, and it's already got this kind of, you know, these butch-looking tyres and sports bars and stickers everywhere. I mean, you're possibly still going to do stuff to it. You're probably going to spend another 5-8K on other bits.
Yeah.
But with this, I know you've saved 15K, but
they're basically under the skin.
Yes.
The same.
Yep.
So let's just check on that. Now, you've paid 75 grand for your fancy wheels and your running boards and your sail plane and your arch extensions, and I've got to admit, a pretty handsome and purposeful looking nose there. But
that's right.
Under it all, have you got all the same stuff as me?
Well, let's have a look. I've got a list of bits here.
Okay, I've got my list.
Off you go.
You go with your printed one that's expensive to print out on, you know, papyrus, and I'll go with my Mazda handwritten ballpoint pen version of the same thing.
All right. Dual zone climate air.
Yep, got that.
Okay. Pollen particulate filter.
I didn't write that down, but I'm bound to be in there somewhere.
Yeah. Remote engine start, of course.
Yes, remote engine start.
Now,
traffic sign recognition.
Yes. It doesn't work. It's not very accurate.
It's not.
Though.
Well, I would say infallible. No, it's not infallible. It's quite fallible.
Yeah, I agree. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto.
Yep. Adaptive cruise with stop and go.
Yep. Sky Sound roof. Well, it's called Sky Sound in Isuzu speak, but
I've got roof-mounted speakers as well.
Oh,
yeah.
And you've got leather, I take it? Leather in that one?
Yep. Heated seats.
Yes.
2 position, 2 temperature.
Oh, I don't know.
Doesn't know.
I hate heated seats. I never even look at them.
Rear cross traffic alert.
Yes.
Hill descent control.
Yep.
Hill start assist.
Yes.
Rollover protection.
Possibly. I assume.
Go and find out, John.
Yeah.
been pleasantly surprised. I think Mazda / Isuzu have done a great job in rounding out this vehicle's capabilities to make it every person's vehicle. Yes, it can be a work truck like every other one-ton ute. Yes, it can be a lifestyle vehicle for the weekends like every other one-ton ute. And yes, it does actually present a more, I don't know, saloon car ambience and driver experience than most one-ton utes do. But if you're thinking of jumping from a car or an SUV into the BT-50, drive it and just be aware that you are going to be making some compromises. You are going to have a jigglier ride if you're not carrying a whole bunch of payload in the tray to settle the suspension down. You are going to be experience a little bit more pedestrian acceleration because that diesel engine is not particularly lusty. You may have to be a bit more patient with your expectations of overtaking or general performance driving. But once you're up and running, once it's got way on, I guess you'd say, it's actually quite engaging. And I've got to say, I've actually enjoyed myself quite a lot in this BT-50. So yeah, well done Mazda. I think that the BT-50 is certainly doing a nice job of helping people like me who are committed saloon car drivers and small car drivers see the merits in these utes. If you're in the right frame of mind, you're not in a hurry, they make a lot of sense.